So the title of this video is he is showing you his lack of capacity without saying a word. So I talk about the lack of emotional capacity, lack of capacity to be in a relationship before on this channel. So I'm gonna do another video on that. So have you ever felt like your partner's behavior is making you feel drained? Like his behavior is making you feel frustrated and confused and sometimes even exhausted, even if he hasn't said anything harmful or he did not do anything harmful. You still feel this confusion or this frustration. And the truth is that he wouldn't tell you that he can't handle being in a relationship because he might not even be aware that he's not fit to be in a relationship. But it shows up in small ways over time without him even saying a word, right? So recognizing this early, knowing that a man is not capable of being in a relationship in the dating phase or in the relationship is one of the most important skills you need to develop while being involved with men. So understanding his emotional capacity, what he can actually give emotionally, physically, mentally, energetically, is more valuable than hearing promises, than hearing his explanations, than hearing what his intentions are, right? So it's good to see his emotional capacity instead of hearing like fake promises or him future faking, right? So capacity in a relationship means is what a person can actually give consistently over time, not what they say they want or not what they say they want to give. So having the capacity to be in a relationship you would have the capability, or you have emotional availability. You are respectful, you are accountable for your actions, your words, you are reliable, you put in effort over time in a relationship and you invest energy, right? So for example, a man might say he loves you, he cares about you, and he wants to make this relationship work, but when something uncomfortable comes up, he disappears for days, he disappears for weeks or even months if there's an issue where he did something wrong, right? You will see that maybe he avoid apologizing, avoid accountability for his actions, words, and he does not show up consistently. That is him showing his capacity or the lack of capacity to be in a relationship. He's not capable of being in a relationship with you if he's showing these things, right? If he dismiss your concerns, if he minimize your experience, he minimize your feelings, he always saying he's busy, he's straight up unreliable, and he not keeping his word. These are men who refuse to work on their weaknesses. They avoid reflecting on their bad decisions, on their bad behavior, on their past. They avoid becoming a better man. So basically they would lack integrity, they would lack empathy, and when you see them doing all of this, it just means that they don't have the capacity to be in a relationship, right? So having the capacity to be in a relationship, I would list about 6 things. So this man should be consistent over time, which means that, for example, he will follow through with plans, he will show up every day, he willing to resolve conflict, and willing to change hurtful behavior, willing to apologize consistently over time. That is one. And the next thing is, which is very important, is his behavior under stress, right? This is something that you need to look at while you're communicating with him, interacting with him, being involved with him. You need to see how he handle challenges. Is he going to be calm handling challenges, which would be the best way, or is he going to lash out? Is he going to disappear? Is he going to go missing? Is he going to be dismissive? Is he going to be argumentative? Is he going to use silent treatment? Is he going to blame you? Is he going to stonewall you or refuse to engage? And doing all of these things obviously will show that he lacked the capacity to be in a relationship, because you need to handle conflict calmly and in a healthy manner, right? The next thing is, when somebody have the capacity to be in a relationship, there's a good energy exchange, right? If he doesn't have the capacity to be in a relationship, he will drain your energy. It will be confusing. You would not really know where you stand. He will be giving attitude, he will be dysfunctional, and he will be mistreating you and taking you for granted over time, right? So that's another way to you could see if somebody have the capacity to be in a relationship or not, right? Next thing is his response to boundaries. Do he honor your boundaries, or do he push them away, right? If you create a boundary, you make a boundary, you have certain things you are not cool with, or you don't, for example, you don't accept disrespectful behavior, hurtful behavior, or talking about consistency, you don't accept people making promises and not following through. When you state those boundaries, is he going to honor it or not, right? The next thing to look for is emotional maturity, which is very important in a relationship, right? Emotional maturity, do you have the ability to understand and manage emotions? Do you have the ability to express your emotion in a balanced, healthy, and responsible way, especially during conflict, especially when there's stress, especially when there's some disappointment in the relationship? You will see if they're emotionally mature. The next way you could see if somebody capable of being in a relationship is the emotional capacity, which is what I'm talking about in this video. The ability to emotionally handle and process and sustain things like stress, like vulnerability, ability to handle and process vulnerability in someone else, in yourself, the ability to sustain intimacy and resolve conflict and meet the emotional needs of yourself and the other person. So those are 6 things you would see when somebody is capable of being in a relationship, right? So there are some signs he lacks emotional capacity. Or some people might say some men, they don't have the emotional bandwidth, and that is when you would see things like they're shutting down when emotions come up, avoiding hard conversations, especially like difficult things, issues, hurtful behavior. They cannot stay present during uncomfortable conversations. These are signs that he lacked the emotional capacity. He cannot listen without being defensive. He cannot listen without shifting the blame to you, right? Cannot listen without being irritated or overwhelmed easily, right? They minimize your feelings. They tell you you're overreacting. They tell you you're too much. They tell you you're overthinking. They tell you you're overreacting, right? Minimizing your experiences, minimizing your issues, basically making you feel like you're inferior to them and that your life is not as important to their life, right? Disappearing when things get real, when life gets hard. They don't have the emotional strength to be in a relationship. They always need space. Every time there's emotional demand, every time there's some conflict, they need space. They can't regulate their emotions. They lash out. They get angry. The favorite emotion of most men, or the only emotion they know how to express, is anger. That is somebody who lacks the capacity to be in a relationship. They cannot hold space for your feelings. They cannot just listen, right? So those are signs that he lacks the emotional capacity. And observing emotional capacity can be hard for some women, because you might be too busy justifying a man's behavior, hoping he will change, or you're just afraid to lose the relationship. Because if you really understand who he really is and you really see that he lacks integrity, obviously you won't want to be with somebody who lacks integrity, who lacks empathy, right? maybe you're saying to yourself, the reason why you can't absorb, or you can't see that he lacks the emotional capacity, because you're telling yourself, maybe he's under stress right now, he's under pressure right now, and then after he would be better. Or you're saying, if he says something hurtful, disrespectful, you might say he didn't mean it like that. Or if he's treating you if he's taking you for granted, you might say, well, he doesn't know how to be better, he had a rough upbringing, or he had this bad past experiences with in romantic relationships. And we cannot be justifying bad behavior. We should not be justifying his behavior, because it shows him that you could get away with disrespectful behavior, you could get away with hurtful behavior around here, right? We should not be hoping that he'll change, or you're trying to change him, because you will just be creating more stress for yourself, and more than likely you are going to see the same mistakes over and over again, the same bad behavior over and over again. Most men, they don't change, they get worse, or they stay stagnant. We should never be over explaining ourselves or invest in someone who drain your energy, right? You will be harboring resentment for weeks and months. You would become exhausted trying to fix him, trying to teach values, trying to make him show empathy, right? You should not be giving too much chances. We should not be enduring mistreatment and sacrificing ourselves because of his lack of capacity to feel guilty, his lack of capacity to feel shame. You can't feel shame, you can't feel guilty, you don't have empathy. These are things that men need to have in a romantic relationship, right? If he don't feel any discomfort, or he don't feel bad for hurting you, that something is wrong. That is not somebody you should be in a relationship with. You should never be in a relationship with a man who only concerned about himself, only concerned about his comfort. Only do what is right when it's convenient to him. Men will always put themselves first, no matter what. And this is something that most women don't realize. We need to realize that men will always put themselves first, right? You cannot be tolerating for weeks and months of broken promises, future faking, and you secretly in your mind hoping that someday he will show up for you the way that you deserve. He has shown you over time, over weeks, over months, that he is unreliable, right? Staying with him will just cause more frustration. Who wants to be with somebody you can't rely on? That will give you more frustration. You're gonna feel overlooked, you're gonna feel deceived and misguided, right? When his words don't match his actions. Basically, most men, they just lack integrity, right? Their conscience, his conscience is stunted. He may have an inability to feel bad, to feel guilty, to feel shame for doing you wrong. He may not have the capacity to feel discomfort when he hurt you, right? He doesn't want to feel uncomfortable. His comfort is always more important than whatever is going on with you and the relationship. Some men don't know the difference between right or wrong. Some of them know, but they just lack values and they lack morals. Or they just don't care. Most of them just don't care. They do what they want to do, right? And added to that, lack of communication skills. Right? Most of the time, men are thinking how to get away with this, not what is the right thing to do, right? Or he may feel guilty for a moment and then blocks it out and sweep it under the rug and then blame you for everything, right? That is a lack of emotional capacity, lack of emotional maturity, right? And recognizing that this man do not have the capacity to be in a relationship. It protects you, so it prevents unnecessary emotional labor that you're carrying. It clarifies why this man is showing up cold, heartless, unconcerned, because they don't have the capacity to be in a relationship, right? It reduces self-blame. You might be blaming yourself for his behavior. But if you see that he lacked the emotional capacity, lacked the capacity to be in a relationship, you would understand that you are not the problem, that you're not too sensitive, things that they say, to push things on the rug. You're overreacting, right? So knowing the capacity of someone or the emotional bandwidth is very important. So it clarifies for you if he's capable or if he's not capable of meeting your needs or your standards or your expectations in a relationship. Right? You recognize that there's a character problem. His character is flawed. He lacks integrity and he lacks morals. And obviously you don't want to be with somebody like that. You understand that he's underdeveloped emotionally. Most men are underdeveloped emotionally. Most men are emotionally immature. Most men are highly self-centered, right? You understand the lack of capacity. So you know that you don't want to be with somebody like that. So it's easy to break up and to move on. You recognize that he don't reflect. Most men, they don't reflect. They don't contemplate on their actions. They don't contemplate on the hurtful behavior. They don't introspect. They don't look back on the past romantic relationships where they went wrong. Right? They never worked on their weaknesses. They don't evolve. They can't evolve if you don't work on your character. They don't work on their flaws, right? They may have grown up, they never face consequences. Most men are entitled. They feel like they're just entitled to you. They're entitled to your body. They're entitled to your time. They're entitled to your care. They're entitled to your love without even showing any reciprocity, right? They grew up without guidance. They grew up without their parents teaching them values. They never learned to be responsible, never learned to have integrity. They were neglected, and they grew up and they never take the time to work on themselves, right? They never learn to care for someone else but themselves. They will always avoid. They know how to avoid. They know how to distract themselves. They know how to dismiss feelings of their partner, right? And we need to recognize this. Recognizing this protects you from continuing on and being with them, right? And how to respond to this limited capacity, right? Know that this is their limit, right? It's not your failure. There's nothing wrong with you. This is their underdevelopment, right? You have to disengage and remove yourself from this man, from this relationship, and set better boundaries for future relationships, right? You need to work on your weaknesses, as in why you took so long to leave? Why are you enduring mistreatment? You would need to build back up your self-esteem and your self-worth, right? And you need to realize that you need to stop over-explaining and justifying bad behavior. Stop carrying his emotional weight. It's not yours to carry. Stop absorbing his confusion. Stop trying to figure out his lack of conscience. Why he don't have conscience? Stop trying to wrap your head around why is his avoidant behavior. Right? Stop trying to constantly figure out this dismissive behavior. Why he lashing out, why he's so angry, racking your brain to try to understand why he's so self-centered. Most men are self-centered. He just lacks the capacity to show up as an emotionally mature human being. That's basically what's the problem here. He does not have the capacity to feel hurt, to feel empathy. He don't have emotional intelligence, never worked on himself. He has a limited emotional capacity to feel shame, to feel guilty for his actions. You don't want to be with somebody like that. You don't want to be with somebody who can't process emotions well. They can't process their emotions, they can't process your emotions, and he's not emotionally equipped to sort through situations that involve hurt feelings. He have low emotional awareness, limited emotional capacity, right? He showed his limits quietly, repeatedly, without explanation. You can see, you watch, you learn, and then you choose not to engage with these type of men. Respect their capacity. You lack capacity, and you respect yourself by disengaging from these types of men. So honor their limits, right? You should be looking for steady presence and consistent effort over time. Calm responses under stress. Ability to repair conflict. Ability to communicate. Capable of keeping promises. Somebody who has integrity, values, and morals. Somebody who has respect for you, have respect for themselves. Somebody who is reliable, very important. Somebody who has empathy, who could understand your feelings, and somebody who is evolving, maturing, and doing better, working on themselves. So, understanding emotional bandwidth changes everything. It changes everything. It removes the confusion you have about him. You stop blaming yourself. You stop feeling drained and exhausted, trying to teach values. So when you stop interpreting limit capacity as personal failure, it's not your fault. You didn't fail. Yeah, you regain clarity when you realize that it's a limited capacity to be in a relationship. You are not the problem. He lacks the capacity to be in a relationship. And when you fully understand this, you stop over-giving, you stop over-explaining, you stop waiting for him to change, waiting for him to be capable of what he's not. You stop justifying his behavior, you stop giving the benefit of the doubt, you stop enduring mistreatment, you stop enduring disrespect. People will always show their capacity or their lack of capacity, right? So basically the question is whether you're going to see it and act on what you see. And the best thing to do is to act on what you see. Most men, they lack the emotional capacity. Most men, they don't work on themselves, right? I hope this video helps. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.